This week's been fascinating. We've seen the Austrians to begin with, then the Germans talk not just about having to have COVID passports, which Europe has already, and which you're going to be voting on Tuesday, but actually about the concept of mandatory vaccines. And then Ursula von der Leyen, the boss of the European Commission, basically saying this is now going to be European Union policy. Greece fining people over 60 who haven't got the vaccine. I mean, all of this, to me, utterly horrifying. And I've been saying all week, thank goodness we've left the European Union. Thank goodness we're not going to be dragged into this. And the most shocking thing of the week to me, and yet I don't think it got the coverage that it deserved in many ways, because we were talking about passes.
There was so much news this week, wasn't there?
And speculation too. But the most shocking thing to me was when Boris Johnson said at that press conference, and I did view the press conference as being a big diversion, to be honest, from what was going on, but we should launch a national conversation about whether we're going to have mandatory vaccines in this country. I was utterly astonished, and I'll bet, Deanna, your gang were pretty amazed, weren't they?
Absolutely. There was real uproar when we saw that amongst, friends, colleagues, backbenchers.
Do you think it was planned, Deanna, or do you think it was a throwaway line?
No, I hope not. I've had many people say, he's done it as a shock factor to take away from the rest of the news, to try and distract. I really don't think that was the case at all. I think have a conversation was a way to kind of say, no, we'll talk about it, but... And then we had, obviously, the Health Secretary come out and say he's opposed to the idea. Whether that will be sustained or not is a different matter. But
as he was to vaccine passports.
Absolutely. But, for what it's worth, my contribution to the national conversation is it would be an absolute outrage to introduce mandatory vaccinations. But absolute outrage.
Let's look at the other leaders in the other parts of the UK. I can very easily see Mark Drakeford and Nicola Sturgeon saying, yes, we want mandatory vaccinations.
Yep,
likewise.
Because don't forget what's happening in those regions at the moment. We are ahead in Scotland, Northern Ireland and Wales in terms of restrictions. You're talking about vaccine passports in England. We have them.
Yeah.
The rest of the UK has them. So I actually think that Michael Gove has this meeting with Mark Drakeford, Nicola Sturgeon and the First and Deputy First Minister of Northern Ireland. And I would imagine that the majority on that call will be saying we need to have that conversation.
Yeah, and here's the funny thing, Paul. Here's the really funny thing. Here we've got, and at the moment, we're just going to be voting and debating on Tuesday in Parliament, the idea that England should have to have COVID passports, and there are 65 Conservative members of Parliament lined up that we know, and there could be more by Tuesday. It seems to me. That number isn't going to diminish, given, the mood. And yet the Labour Party will support all of it.
The Labour Party is more hardline on this stuff than Boris Johnson. Let's be blunt.
Yeah.
And the Labour Party, almost to a man and woman, by the way, on the Labour benches, there's very little dissent in the Parliamentary Labour Party about any of this stuff, and that unnerves me, because what we're seeing is a power grab by government, which is unprecedented, really. Now, OK, we can have a debate about whether or not it's justified, but there is no doubt that the government has arrogated to itself there's sort of sweeping and arbitrary powers to, instruct us to tell us where we can go, who we can speak to, whether we can, work, whether we have to work from home, etc. The sort of thing we haven't seen since wartime. Yeah. And the left traditionally has always challenged that sort of establishment power, or at least has been very, very uneasy about it. But I'm afraid that Labour is completely gung-ho on some of this stuff. And the danger, as I say, is if you then see the extension of the Coronavirus Act, you then see indefinitely the government exercising this power well into the future.